exclusively on the Radio Infidel Show.
Well, I did a report on this, and I really grappled with not sounding too bitter or the other extreme too sentimental, and I decided I'm entitled to feel both. I was a kid of the 50s and 60s, a time that seems far away to me now and makes me sad for those who didn't experience it with me. Long before stranger danger, it was safe to walk to school or ride the bus. Bullying was rare, and it was worked out by standing your ground, and one or both of you going home with a shiner, you had to explain. It was handled and it was done. There was none of this cowardly cyberbullying crap. In grade school, we took turns leading the class in the Pledge of Allegiance and singing the national anthem or the Battle Hymn of Republic. We all pretended we hated it, but secretly we couldn't wait for our turn. I was 8 when JFK was assassinated. Everyone was crying. The grief was palpable. A nation was in shock and mourning. No one had openly threatened to kill or harm the president, and no one was celebrating. Folks still felt awe and respect for our president and trusted our leaders. 5 years later, Martin Luther King was shot. A nation again mourned, but grief turned to anger, with rioting in the streets, folks fighting with folks that only the day prior they either didn't know at all or considered as friends. Major cities had a 6 p.m. curfew. Even the ballpark where we used to play wasn't safe, now filled with an angry and armed mob. That was the day I first became aware of the world outside of my circle of family and friends, and knew things would never be the same for any of us. I was in junior high when girls were allowed to wear pants to school, and even then jeans were not acceptable by girls or boys. Boys still had to wear their shirts tucked and a belt. Now pants are worn low enough to reveal behinds. Belts are a memory, and nothing is off limits except a Make America Great Again t-shirt, because apparently it's more offensive than someone exposing their butt crack. Childhood was a fairly carefree. Parents were involved, helped with homework, and actually read report cards. Many of us could recite the Golden Rule and 10 Commandments. We earned allowances by doing chores, had a healthy fear of consequences of not following rules, and knew the pride that comes from a job well done. There was no such thing as timeouts and participation trophies. Summers were glorious and carefree. We took off on our bikes for the day with a firm caution to be home when the streetlights came on. In neighborhoods across America, kids gathered to play hide-and-seek and tag after dark, while the adults visited on front steps and back porches. I knew no one with a phone of their own. Phones remained in our homes, shared by the family with time limits for the use. We watched one TV in the house together and played Monopoly and Go Fish, and still looked people in the eye when we talked to them. Now all I ever see is the top of someone's head, distracted and unengaged. In the 60s, love, sex, and rock and roll, man. There were protests, but it wasn't about hate or shutting down speech, and consisted mostly of peaceful stoners, sit-ins, and singing songs. Now we have heroin and meth-addicted folks, void of foreseeable goals or moral compass, easy prey to the money of corrupted leaders and outside influences violently rioting in our streets, where cops and patriots are enemies, and our flag and anthem are met with scorn. August 1969, Woodstock. 500,000 people gathered in a farmer's field to celebrate music and peace, showcasing a lineup of reformers unlike any other prior or since. Jimi Hendrix, Santana, Janis Joplin, Joe Cocker, The Who, and others, inherently and phenomenally talented, unenhanced by electronically altered effects. I doubt we could get 500,000 people together now without a political agenda and the Antifa insanity. It was still affordable to attend pro sports games. Inside the stadium, it was like a nation within a nation, all united by one goal of victory. Together, we sang the songs, chanted the slogans, stood for the anthem, and almost the entire stadium sang in unison. When a critical score was made, strangers hugged and high-fived. No one was thinking about politics. It was an amazing experience that sadly now caters almost exclusively to those who can afford the exorbitant costs, and has been tarnished by self-indulgent behaviors that have breached the bonds of unity. I enlisted in the Army with my best friend. Government school loans and free education didn't exist. With my very unimpressive grades, any effort to qualify for a scholarship would have been met with fits of laughter. I was on my own, scared witless, and home would never be the same again. About the time I began to get used to the DI always screaming and calling us names, I began to understand the importance of that time and how the experiences and friendships would shape my future and the person I would become. I find it very difficult to be a kid or young adult today because the rules are blurred and there are few boundaries. I'd have known little about our nation's history because it's no longer taught in schools. I'd have been robbed of the pride in my heart when pledging allegiance to our flag, would not be able to grasp exactly why the national anthem still moves me to tears. So yeah, some days I'm overwhelmed with the bitterness for the loss of what was, the very things that define what it means to me to be American. But because I grew up when choices were clear, the world more grateful and less self-absorbed, and made a hell of a lot more sense, this sentimental American veteran does still and will always place my hand on my heart when the flag passes and unapologetically shed tears of pride when I hear our national anthem. And anyone who is offended by it can kiss my red, white, blue, and army green ass.